Oh yeah, the topic that you have chosen is going to have tons and tons and tons of things written about it over a long period of time. So something to be aware of is the date range of what you're looking for. Um, I will show you how you can avoid some historical things, but maybe how to include them. It depends on what you're interested in. If there's like a sentinel event that you want to look at, say for example, Columbine, um, that would be a keyword in and of itself. But otherwise, I would just use keywords that I'm going to show you in some of the databases. So I'm going to pick three databases. So if you go to libutah.edu, the Marriott Library homepage, click on databases. The first one under the letter E is a K through 12, some higher ed database related to education. So education, this is going to have a lot of things like test taking and writing and curriculum development, but it also has policy related to gun violence and things like that. So in the context of education, we should be able to just put in gun violence. And I have some suggestions in here where it says gun violence in schools, but I think that's kind of a given in this database. So let's see what we get. 334. But what we would like to do, if you go down here to the date range, you can see it starts in 1993. That is no good. We got to get up to at least our current 10 years because a lot has happened, especially since smartphones came along, and it's easier to record events and share them on media, and then people get talking about them a lot more than they used to, is my theory anyway. Oh, here we go. So we have one word, deterrence. There's another one that I found in other ones where it talked about intervention. Looks like, oh, here we go, for school leaders. So we want to get scholarly articles though, and this might be just like a letter to the editor, an essay. What I would encourage you to do is just click on this guy, the scholarly peer-reviewed button. And that's going to narrow it down from 300 way lower. And this will be a little more reliable. But they're not talking about schools per se. How interesting. Violence itself is a root cause of violence. Well, there you go. So let's add that keyword. And school, so I want school or schools. And so what I do is I have gun violence as my first keyword. And when you put the and in there, it says return everything with gun violence, and then out of that search result, pull everything out that has school or schools. It's going to be a much smaller list. So we had 131, and we're down to 65. Oh, arming school teachers. There's one solution. I don't know if it's the best solution, but you get to decide what you want to show. So the urban adolescent, so there's education, predicting events, deterrence. There's a specific shooting. Ooh, that one really worked out well. Let's do that search again in a different database. So all of these you can see where there's PDF full text. If you run into something that says view it and you want that one, all you have to do is click on that button. And it should present you with a list of databases that article might show up in underneath the yellow bar here. If you run into something like this, you might have to use interlibrary loan, but feel free to just email me the citation if it's something you really want. Let's go to a different database though. What's our search here? Gun violence and school star. Next database I want to show you is public policy database. So again, we're databases. And the letter P, public policy is where governments tell schools if you want to have funding, you have to make sure and be inclusive, provide a safe environment for kids, make sure that the heat's on, stuff like that. Schools do a pretty good job about things like that. But if they fail one of those criteria, then public policy or law allows people to go in and take action with it. So policy is written for cities and counties and other countries as well. So this is a good place to look. So I'm going to paste my search in. You can see I did intervention. That search was good, but it didn't have a lot of school stuff. So I'm going to do gun violence and school, but I'm looking in public policy. 282, but again, we want to come up to our current decade. And isn't it interesting? You can see trends in the date. So there was a spike around this time. Was that the time of Columbine? And why is there very little written in this particular year? Metadata searching is fascinating. So we're narrowing down to our current 10 years. So we have 176. And then here you can see Operation Peacemaker Fellowship. So that's a specific intervention that was programmed. You could use that as an example. If you wanted to see that one, you could just click on that. And there's full text PDF right here. And there's also a citation generator right here. That would be a good one. And that's what's called a case study. So they don't gather data from a whole bunch of different places, but they examine in close detail one thing. In this case, it was a place in California. And then there's media, there's public opinion, behavioral health, background checks. You can essentially pick what you want for all of these. You could go to subject and see how are people talking about these in schools. So if you want to look at a particular one, prevention might be a good one, but you might have missed some of the other ones. But there's all sorts of different subjects that you could approach, and then you can see the number of articles with that. So if you wanted to get 3 different ones, you might look at those different subjects. Okay, the last database I want to show you is called Scopus, under the letter S. And the reason that we like Scopus, this one right here, the reason that we like Scopus is because you can look and see what the most, well, I was pretty close on that one. Gun violence in school star, so remember that gives me school or schools. What I'm looking for is the article that, there's 129, and this is all sorts of disciplines from humanities to mathematics to engineering to social sciences, and it's all like those top tier scholarly journals. But what you can do over here is you can sort by what's been written about right now in this current year, or the number of times an article has been cited. Now here we have one that's been cited 131 times, but it's a book, so I don't know if that's going to be the best one. Here's where they're talking about politics. Here's a longitudinal study about delinquent youth. I don't know if that's going to offer solutions or it's just going to be observations. Gun violence. Oh, here we go. Mitigating the effects of gun violence. But again, that doesn't say schools. So what you're going to have to do is probably click on a few of these titles, and all you have to read is the abstract and see where your keywords show up. So schools show up there. And then you can say, well, is this the one that's going to work? So you get to pick how that works. And again, we have a Find It button. I had to find the Find It button, but the Find It button's right there. So if you found one that's really good, that's a great way to go. Let me know how it goes and if I can help you with anything further, but I think you're in great shape. You're just going to have to narrow it down to something that you're interested in that you can consume for your paper. Hope that helps.